All right, so today we're going deep into Too Many Losing Heroines, Volume 4.
Oh, yeah, this one is pretty wild.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you have been asking about this volume specifically, so we're going to try and unpack it all for you today.
For sure. And you're right to be curious about it. It really picks up the pace from the previous volumes.
Yeah, there's no shortage of drama and awkward situations, especially for our main guy, Kazuhiko Nukumizu.
Well, it all starts with that whole BL doujinshi incident, right? I mean, that's a pretty crazy way to kick off a volume.
Now, talk about a scandal. Imagine finding out someone made a BL doujinshi starring you.
And not just any doujinshi, it's one that could get him expelled.
Yeah, the stakes are definitely higher this time around.
Like, the author took all the classic rom-com tropes and then cranked them up to 11.
And it's not just the typical love triangle we see in a lot of these stories. Nukumizu is surrounded by all these interesting women, each with their own motivations and complexities.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's start with Taira Basori, the student council vice president.
She's the one holding all the cards right.
Exactly. She's got that doujinshi, and she's not afraid to use it.
At first, she comes across as this cold and intimidating figure.
The classic ice queen.
But then we get these glimpses of her more vulnerable side, like when we find out about her family struggles.
Yeah, that scene where she's tutoring her little brother to help make ends meet is really powerful.
It makes you realize there's a lot more to her than meets the eye.
And then there's her whole secret interest in BL, which she's desperately trying to hide.
It adds a whole other layer to her character, right?
Totally. It's like she's constantly battling between who she is and who she thinks she should be.
And then we have Shikeya-san, the upperclassman, who's guiding Nukumizu through all this chaos.
She's a real enigma, isn't she?
Even for those of us who've been following the series from the beginning.
I feel like we're always trying to figure her out. What's she thinking? What are her motivations?
Her emotional journey in this volume is especially interesting.
Yeah, you can tell she's struggling with a lot of stuff from her past, especially her relationship with Koto.
Their friendship is a whole other can of worms we could unpack.
Maybe another time, but her confession to Nukumizu on Christmas Eve, that's a major turning point.
What did you make of that? I mean, was it genuine, or was she using him to try and understand her own feelings?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the author doesn't give us any easy answers.
It's like we're left to interpret her actions and words, which just adds to the suspense.
Oh, for sure. And let's not forget about the other losing heroines in the mix.
Yeah, we've got Kamari with her adorable awkwardness, and then there's Yanami, who always seems to be pushing Nukumizu's buttons.
Even Yakishio, who sometimes feels like a side character, has her own moments of depth.
She's kind of like the voice of reason in all this craziness.
I like that, the voice of reason.
Speaking of crazy, let's talk about that Christmas Eve date.
Oh boy, that was something else.
It's supposed to be part of Nukumizu's mission to take down Taira and get that doujinshi back, but it ends up becoming so much more.
Yeah, their relationship definitely takes a turn there. It goes from strategic to something a lot more emotionally charged.
You can see Nukumizu trying so hard to impress Shikeya-san. Remember that whole heart-shaped straw twig?
Classic Nukumizu. But it's those moments of awkwardness and vulnerability that really make their connection feel genuine.
What really stood out to me was their conversation about communication and emotional expression.
Yeah, that was a pretty insightful scene.
It reveals so much about their insecurities and desires.
Especially Shikeya-san and her desire to be like Koto. It makes you wonder if she's trying to emulate Koto's emotional openness or if she's losing sight of her own identity in the process.
It's a really good point. And then you had Nukumizu, who's completely oblivious to all of this.
He's just relieved that the date seems to be going well and that he might actually be able to get that doujinshi back.
He even forgets about his meeting with Taira, which leads to a whole other set of problems.
Oh man, when Taira shows up at the karaoke room ready to give him an earful, and then Yakishio walks in.
Talk about awkward.
And it's Yakishio who points out the obvious that Nukumizu seems to be developing real feelings for Shikeya-san.
Which, of course, he denies.
He's adamant that it was all just a strategy, but you can tell he's starting to question his own emotions.
And then just when he thinks he's navigated that minefield, Prez Hokubaru drops that bombshell about Shikeya-san.
That was ominous. What does she know about Shikeya-san's past?
And why is she so determined to keep Nukumizu away?
The author is a master at leaving us with these cliffhangers.
Like they're dangling these mysteries in front of us, making it impossible to put the book down.
Exactly. So Nukumizu is, trying to figure out his feelings.
He's trying to be proactive.
Yeah, but that doesn't always go so well for him, does it?
Definitely not. He's got a knack for landing himself in some pretty awkward situations.
Well, it all starts with his attempt to meet with Taira to get an update on the Shikeya-san and Koto situation.
Right, but Kanuki-sensei has other plans.
Oh yeah, she can't help but meddle, can she?
I think she's got Nukumizu's love life filed under a personal project at this point.
Which I'm sure he appreciates.
Oh yeah, definitely. But her advice, while usually well-intentioned, often just adds to his confusion.
It's like she's trying to write her own rom-com with Nukumizu as the main character.
But he's not really playing along.
And then you've got Prez dropping those cryptic warnings about Shikeya-san.
What do you think she knows?
I don't know, but it's clear there's something about Shikia-san's past that she's not telling us.
It's one of the things that keeps you hooked up to the series.
Oh, for sure. But before we get into all that, Nukumizu finds himself in yet another compromising situation.
The PE storage room incident?
Oh yeah, that was a classic.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Exactly. Shikia-san pressed up against him, bewildered sports club members looking on.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And of course, it doesn't help that he still hasn't managed to ask Shikia-san out on a proper date.
He just can't seem to catch a break.
But there is a glimmer of hope in the form of Yukisho.
Ah, Yukisho, she's like the voice of reason in this whole chaotic mess.
Always observing, always understanding.
Exactly. She sees right through Nukumizu's attempts to downplay the situation.
She knows he's got it bad for Shikia-san.
And she encourages him to be honest with himself about his feelings.
Which is good advice.
I also think it's interesting how this scene ties into Yukisho's own emotional arc.
Oh, how so?
Well, she's dealing with her own insecurities about her place in the track and field club.
Right, and she sees Nukumizu's romantic struggles as a reflection of her own challenges.
They're both realizing that sometimes you have to take risks and be vulnerable, even if it's scary.
That's a good point. So Nukumizu finally decides to take the plunge and ask Shikia-san out.
But of course, things don't exactly go according to plan.
Let's just say the school gymnasium isn't the most romantic setting for a love confession.
Especially when you've got Shikia-san clinging to you and asking you out in front of the entire school.
Talk about a public declaration.
Poor Nukumizu, he's completely flustered trying to downplay the situation, but he's too late.
The damage is done.
And then Kanuki-sensei shows up to add fuel to the fire with her naked mind and soul advice.
Always helpful.
Oh yeah, super helpful. But it's kind of a reflection of the chaos that's swirling around Nukumizu right now.
He's got all these strong women pulling him in different directions.
You've got Shikia-san's vulnerability, Taira's hidden depths, Komari's unwavering affection, and then there's Yanami, who's clearly hurt and confused by his actions.
It's a lot to handle.
Especially for a teenage boy who's already prone to overthinking and awkwardness.
It's the classic too many losing heroines dilemma.
Nukumizu is the prize, but at what cost?
Right, and let's not forget about the whole Beale Doujinshi situation.
Oh yeah, that's still looming over his head.
He's supposed to be meeting with Taira to finalize their agreement, but he keeps getting sidetracked by all this romantic drama.
Which just makes Taira even more frustrated and suspicious.
She accuses him of two-timing and threatens to expose the doujinshi.
So much pressure.
It forces Nukumizu to confront a difficult truth. He can't keep playing games and stringing everyone along.
He has to be honest, even if it means risking everything.
And so he does. He meets Taira on the Oiketohashi Bridge.
That location seemed pretty symbolic, don't you think?
Yeah, bridges often represent transitions or turning points.
And this scene definitely marks a shift in their dynamic.
It's a tense encounter. Taira is angry, Nukumizu is hesitant, and the threat of the doujinshi is hanging over them.
But then something unexpected happens. Nukumizu chooses honesty.
He tells Taira about his feelings for Shikia-san, but explains that he's still trying to figure things out.
And to his surprise, she accepts his explanation.
She even gives him back the doujinshi.
It's like she's finally seeing him as more than just a pawn in her game.
A real turning point for their relationship.
But just when it seems like he can finally breathe a sigh of relief, Yanami calls.
Oh no.
And she's not happy.
The consequences of his actions are catching up to him.
That whole Christmas Eve karaoke situation really backfired.
Yeah, Yanami is hurt, angry, and feeling rejected.
And what makes it even worse is that we see these glimpses of her true feelings for Nukumizu.
It's clear she cares for him deeply.
But he's completely oblivious. He just sees her as a friend.
The classic unrequited love scenario.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity to this already tangled web of relationships.
So now Nukumizu has alienated Yanami. He's still trying to understand his feelings for Shikia-san, and he's got the weight of Koto's expectations on his shoulders.
What a mess.
But let's not forget about the author's brilliant storytelling.
They've created such a captivating world with these flawed but relatable characters.
The humor, the drama, the character development, it's all so well done.
And just when you think you have it all figured out, another twist comes along and throws you for a loop.
Exactly. So are you ready to see how Nukumizu navigates this final hurdle?
So Yanami's not messing around him.
Nope, not at all.
I mean, she strangles him with his own scarf.
That's intense.
It's like she's trying to literally choke the truth out of him.
Yeah, there's a lot of anger there.
But I think it's more than just anger.
Oh, for sure.
I think she's also feeling really hurt and vulnerable.
Especially with all the rumors going around.
Yeah, she's worried about what other people think of her.
It's a side of her we don't often see.
And Nukumizu being Nukumizu completely misses the cues.
Of course he does.
Instead of acknowledging her pain, he tries to deflect with a mini yoken.
And not even one that she likes.
It just shows how disconnected they are emotionally.
Yeah, Yanami's long for a deeper connection, and Nukumizu's still stuck in his own head.
And it's her birthday.
Me too.
You'd think he'd at least remember that.
It's like the one thing she really looks forward to.
I know, it just makes the whole situation even more heartbreaking.
Especially when she compares her love for Nukumizu to her love for yakisoba.
A fleeting passion.
It's a powerful metaphor for unrequited love.
And Nukumizu totally misses the point.
As usual.
It's frustrating, right? You just want to shake him and say, wake up.
I know, but that's part of what makes this series so compelling.
So where do we go from here?
Well, the student council meeting is coming up.
Right, Nukumizu has to report to Taira about Shikia-san and Koto.
And the setting for this meeting is pretty interesting.
The school promenade.
Overlooking the pond.
It's not your typical student council setting.
It's more contemplative, almost like the setting itself is reflecting the emotional weight of the conversation.
And Nukumizu is still carrying that BL Dojinshi.
A constant reminder of his debt to Taira.
It's like a physical manifestation of their unspoken agreement.
So how does the meeting go?
It's a mix of tension and revelation.
Taira starts off cold and dismissive, but as Nukumizu explains things, she starts to soften.
You can see her perspective shifting.
She's actually starting to understand Shikia-san's struggles.
And she even apologizes to Nukumizu for misjudging him.
And then she gives him back the doujinshi.
I know, right?
It's a huge moment.
Like she's finally letting go of that control she had over him.
And then Koto calls.
Oh no.
She's not happy about the light show incident.
She wants Nukumizu to take responsibility for Shikia-san's actions.
It's misdirected anger, really.
But Koto's hurting.
And Nukumizu, being Nukumizu, agrees to help.
He wants to mediate the situation between Koto and Shikia-san.
Which is a noble gesture.
But it's also putting him right back in the middle of their complicated past.
He's wading into a minefield.
And that's where Volume 4 leaves us.
With Nukumizu facing an uncertain future.
Caught between the expectations of others and his own desires.
It's an ending that's both satisfying and frustrating.
We've seen so much growth from these characters.
But there are still so many unanswered questions.
It's a testament to the author's skill.
Oh, absolutely. They've created a world that's both familiar and unique.
With characters that are flawed, relatable, and utterly captivating.
It's a masterclass in storytelling.
The humor, the drama, the character development, it all comes together beautifully.
And it leaves you wanting more.
I know, I can't wait to see what happens next.
So what did you think of this volume? What resonated with you the most? Which character are you rooting for?
Let us know in the comments below.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And until next time, happy reading.